The 2016 grand final, is it an obvious question? Is it the best moment of your career?
Yeah, it is.
Because you did play for New South Wales.
Yeah, no, by far and away. It's something I dreamed of as a young boy. I remember my dad driving me down the freeway. Me and my brother at the 96, 97 grand final. We were there for the 95 one. We were Manly supporters. So I remember being there in 95 and just that was when the dream really started, and then when although I was a Manly supporter, seeing Paul Harrigan bring the trophy back to Newcastle and seeing what that did for the community, even though they were one of their biggest rivals at the time and who Manly had been defeated by, there was just something really unique about that lit a real fuse for me, to want to get there and be on that stage. And, yeah.
Because 14, you had a broken foot, didn't you?
06, I missed with an ACL when Brisbane won it.
Yeah.
And I was there.
12 you lost?
12 we lost to Melbourne, and it was a hell of a game.
It was a good game.
But the pain was horrific. As you know, it wasn't a grand final.
You think you're going to get another chance.
That's it. You just don't know. You just don't know if you're ever going to get back there. 14 broke my foot in the prelim against Penrith to go on and play South Sydney and missed that, which was my final game for the Dogs, which hurt even more because I love that club. And given the pain we had in 12, I would have loved to have beaten South Sydney that night, and turned that around as captain. And going to Cronulla, I was so hopeful. I was so comfortable in the squad that we had that we were capable of doing things. But you just don't know if you're being too optimistic because it takes so much to get there. And they were coming off the back of a wooden spoon. So I didn't know if I was just, being optimistic and being naive, but I knew we were a shot. And in 15, we put so many good things in place. In 16, I knew I was in a side that had the chance to win a comp.
Well, you talked about 2014 broken foot. You missed a grand final. You almost missed 2016, didn't you, because of a shoulder charge?
Yeah, I was bloody lucky, to be honest. I mean, I tackled Blake Green. We went down to Melbourne for the minor premiership game to a packed Amy Park.
This is the highest rating game in Fox Sports history. I remember the build-up to this game.
Yeah, and we'd beaten them earlier in the season, and they physically and verbally bashed us that night in every which way. And yeah, I did. I thought I was in big trouble. I didn't sleep at all that night. I didn't sleep at all. Base points for a shoulder charge is 200 points, which means that if we obviously lost that game, which meant we had to go to Canberra and play, and the chance of beating them, they'd won 10 or 11 in a row. Yeah. And then if we lose that, then we're in sudden death. So there's a chance I may never play again.
After you watch that and they go through the video, what's your defence? Knowing the shoulder charges are out.
Separation.
Yes. I tried to wrap my arms,
yeah, I was lucky. Very, very lucky. But after that...
So you went to the judiciary and fought, did you?
No, I didn't get charged. But they...
You didn't get charged at all?
Well, they changed the rule after because of the separation.
Oh, you were the catalyst.
Yeah. Jack White, and I think flattened Keith Galloway maybe the next day. So he took a little bit of heat off me. But long story short, we go to Canberra. We get through. So Canberra on this wonderful run, where they'd won 10 or 11 in a row. They were flying, and we were being smashed down in Melbourne, physically, verbally, as I said. And we sat in the change rooms at Amy Park, and Gal, very much a leader of what he, by actions, doesn't say a lot. And we sat next to each other, and for 5 minutes it was just silence. And he turned to me as he took off his boots and picked up his towel and went to walk the sheds, and he says, "I hope we get to play those pricks again." And I said, "Mate, so do I." And that was enough. And from that moment, something just started to build inside us because we'd really been put in our place. We'd had such a good run where we'd won 15 or 16 in a row and really fallen off a cliff. And just that was that moment where I think we started to realise we couldn't waste what we'd built.
Feel like you got bullied. That wasn't going to happen again.
That was exactly right. And we had some blokes like Lewis and Gallen and Graham and Pryor and Feeder and those blokes that were tough hombres that were ready to rock and roll with the best. And Melbourne give it to us that night. And so anyway, we get through a really good week of training. We're in the gym on Wednesday. We're going to Canberra on a Friday night to play in a game that we knew was sold out. The Raiders faithful were going berserk. They'd earned that right for that home final. Gal does his back in the gym. He's got an old disc problem. It flares up. Can't walk. We come in for captain's run on the Thursday. He's almost in a wheelchair, like literally cannot walk. Emotional, in tears. Boys, I can't come.
I'm off.
I can't play. So Wade takes us down there as captain. First 2 minutes, the minute we walk out to warm up, Maloney, myself, Fafita, Barber, you name it, copped an absolute barrage from the support. Oh, relentless. And we just walked into this hostile environment. Almost, if you look at that Cronulla side, it was where we thrived. It was where we played our best, you know. And all week it had been about trying to eliminate Canberra's start. And sure enough, here we go. Canberra out to a 10 or 12 point lead in the space of 10 minutes.
Oh, that's right.
And they were going berserk. Hodgson was flying. Rapiner ran a length of the field. And this play on the stroke of half time changed the whole context of the game.
He was unbelievable in the finals.
Pryor.
That game was one of the greatest front row performances I've ever seen from Matt Pryor. And I said to the boys when Wade got knocked out, Kurt Capel came onto the field for him.
What a lair.
Here's the clap.
We were behind the try line in Canberra, and I remember saying, Steve Price, our trainer, come out and he said, mate, Wade's not coming back. He goes, you're going to have to captain the boys. I said, yeah, sweet, no worries. And I remember just saying to the boys, it was dead silent. The place was in shell shock. Jimmy Maloney was talking about how to get us back on track. You know, Luke Lewis was saying what he needed to say. And all I said to him was, boys, we can go up this highway with all the excuses in the world. But what we've built here this year, I know that this isn't a side that relies on excuses. Now, you work out which footy side you want to be in. And I turned my back and I thought, oh, shit, what have I said? You know, and it was Andrew Fafita, Matt Pryor, and Ricky Latelli. Rick hadn't said 2 words all year that said, we're coming with you. And that next kickoff, Matt Pryor levelled. I can't remember who it was. He come out of the line, levelled, and from that moment on, as I said, it was one of the greatest front row performances you've seen, and one of the greatest wins I've ever been involved in the sense of with everything at stake and everything I've just explained. And we went up that highway full of confidence. We had the week off. Gal was fine. Wade Graham obviously come back from his concussion. The Broncos and Cowboys went into Golden Point. That was the night I think Thurston came up with the flick pass back on the inside in Golden Point.
Yes.
And so that was in Townsville in treacherous conditions. So we were sitting there just praying that Golden Point game went as long as possible. They come down and they'd done a job on us in 15. They beat us 38-39-0 in that second week of the semi-finals in Townsville.
Yep.
And so the motivation was we were playing for a shot in a grand final. We needed no motivation, knowing who they had in their side and the respect that we had for those players. But yeah, there were blokes in our side that were hurting really bad from their performance 12 months ago that were dying for this opportunity.
But their tank was empty too.
We went after them. We went after him. You know, Maloney had a night out, but physically, the opening 5 to 10 minutes, our Rodheads kick chase of Bird, Lewis in particular, just bashed and got stuck into their back three. I think Kalen Ponga came onto the wing. I think Lachlan Coote was back there. And from there on, we just really clicked into our gear. And a huge night for Chad Townsend because if you remember rightly,
he got
been pulled down,
hooked against Canberra.
And well, Jack Bird moved into the 5'8" position, and Maloney went to half. Yeah, in that game against, and he had a stormer, Chad, and it was the best thing that could have happened. And then
I remember Sterlo had a chat with Chad on the field in Canberra, and that seemed to have a nice impact on Chad as well.
It was one of the most unique experiences of my life that day because I was so methodical with my routine, and it was that day that it really sunk in that my career was coming to could possibly have
to an end. Yeah.
The prelim. That was the first moment where I thought I'd start to put the boots in the bag, put the mouth guard in, the headgear in. I was like, this might be the last time that I did that. And it's funny because it was in the afternoon that it really hit home. And I know I've told you this story before, Block.
I love this story.
So my eldest boy, I was lucky enough, like my kids got to see a lot of my career, but my oldest boy, I had him when I was 22, and he'd been with, through everything. He'd see me play Origins, he'd see me play Grand Finals, and he'd see me play, hundreds of games. But I'd never won anything, Dan. I'd won things as a kid, but at that elite level, I'd never won anything. And all I wanted my son and all my kids to see was me be a winner.
And he's about, 11, 12 by then?
Yeah. And so game day comes around, and I always pack my bag the night before, and pack my bag, and I put it, at the front door, so that I knew game day there was nothing to worry about. I could just relax.
Grab the bag, put it in the back, and away you go. Yep.
Anyway, game time comes. I'm ready to go down to the Luke's Club at Cronulla. I couldn't find my bag. And so I'm saying goodbye to my kids and said goodbye to my wife, Simone, and then I couldn't find Jack, my oldest boy. And I said, "Where's Jack? Where's Jack?" She said, "You might want to have a look out the front." And so I walked out the front. It's hard not to get emotional. And here he is sitting on the front step. And he said to me, I said, "Are you all right, buddy?" And he goes, "Yeah." And he was in all his Cronulla gear. He said, "Don't let tonight be the last night, Dad."
Yeah, it's good, isn't it?
How could you not, Luke? How could you not win after that?
Yeah, and it was probably one of the most special moments of my life. And, having them run on the field grand final night when that siren went was incredible.
Hang on, back to your boy. So when he says that and you're getting emotional, but what's going through your mind? Are you thinking, I can't let him down? Are you thinking,
Absolutely.
Shit,
Well,
this will affect him forever if I don't win?
All that fear inside me came straight to the forefront because everything he was thinking, he wanted us to win.
Yeah.
But me inside was thinking, he needs me to win because he hasn't seen me win. And I just wanted it so bad. I saw all those players over the years on grand final nights where their kids run out and share that moment.
Yeah.
They share that moment, and I'd never had the opportunity to do that. I stood in pain in 2012, but when you pull into ANZ Stadium grand final or any big night, Origin, you come down in the bus and you go into this concrete jungle below the stadium, and you guys know that. But for a lot of fans, they haven't seen that, and you can't hear anything.
No.
It's so quiet. We came down that night. And as the bus door opened, I was sitting in the front seat with Luke Lewis, and Jack Bird got off with us, and so did James Maloney. And all you could hear when the security guard opens the door, the Channel 9 cameras are there, right in your face as you get off the bus. They opened the door, and this sea of noise came.
Yeah.
And it was like, holy shit, there's a lot of Sharks supporters here.
Yeah.
And it was at that moment that it really hit us. And I remember after the game at the Luke's Club, in the early hours of the morning, I finally got to sit with my wife, and she said, "You should have heard the noise when you got off the bus."
Wow.
And I said, "I heard it." And she said, "The stadium was unbelievable." And then we came out and turned in one of the best 40 minutes as you could. When you play Melbourne, you cannot beat yourself. You just cannot. And we were almost perfect. I think we completed, something like 18 of 19 sets and physically bashed them.
Mick, would it be fair to say that a lot of sides, when they played against Melbourne, sort of got a little bit intimidated by them?
Absolutely.
So what was the change from when they flogged you down in Melbourne to grand final day in the mentality of the Sharks?
I think exactly that. We were embarrassed.
Yeah.
We were embarrassed that they had put on a show and we were at our expense. And we knew that these, got guys like Luke Lewis and Chris Hoyington that won premierships in their opening year, as kids, and hadn't tasted it for 13, 14 years. You had Paul Gallen, who had achieved everything in the game, had won every award in the game, but never led his side to a grand final, and we just weren't going to let that. And I know it's easy to say in hindsight. Melbourne were terrific that night.
And they were in front at late in the second half.
Well, no, it went right down to the wire.
And I've got to be honest, well, you're probably thinking the same thing.
Cooper Cronk passes.
Once Melbourne hit the front and we're going down the home straight in a big game, you would just assume
they don't get run down.
They're going to win.
When I said we bashed them in the first half, I cut myself off by saying we were only 8 points in front, and it was never going to be enough. Yeah. And so we started to take shortcuts, trying to find a cheap try to
finish
put them away.
Yeah.
And in doing so, we allowed them back in the contest. And that was the moment that when Chambers scored, that was the conversation. Why, with a lot of expletives, have we all of a sudden turned into a side that we weren't in the opening 40 minutes? We need to go through these bastards. If we're going to go anywhere, we've got to kick the front door down. We've got to go through the middle. And Fafita went straight through the middle. And that moment, and I've spoken about
one of the great grand final tries, that
no one else in the competition.
No one scores it. No, you're right.
No one in the modern game could score other than Andrew Fafita. And me, I got out of dummy half and I showed underneath, and I'd winked at Fafita because I knew Cameron Munster was in the line, who was playing fullback. Yeah, and we'd spoken about him being in the line.
Steamrolling.
And I thought if I can get him one-on-one with Munster here, he's a chance. And so I show underneath, I think underneath to Gallen. And in this moment, that moment there, Dan, slow that down, frame by frame, and that's what it looked like to me.
He's got 4 blokes in that tackle.
Like a car crash. You're
That
seeing it in
moment to
slow
me
motion.
was just this ball sitting in his wrist.
Yeah.
And it slowly just went over like that.
Yeah.
And then I went, holy shit, that's
He's
on
going
the
to
line.
score. Yeah.
He's just scored. And I knew that in that moment, like I mean, you can look at the end of the game.
Who's he run over here?
There's
Munster first.
Yeah, but
Dale Finucane.
Dale Finucane, who does not get run over.
Look at, mate, there's
4 of
5
them around.
defenders
Yeah,
there.
Yeah.
exactly.
There's 5 defenders there. It was one of the great, you know, I believe it was, you know, and I may be biased. People at home going,
Well, people put George Burgess's try up there, but Fafita had the task of turning his body around and getting it down as well.
But that's 5 blokes hanging on to you to
Yeah.
score. That power and the strength
Yeah.
to get his arm around and slam the footy down is unbelievable.
the dying moments felt like an the dying moment. Even when Townsend kicks that ball into touch and they pack that scrum, not for 1 minute did we think we'd won that game. I don't think anyone in our side felt comfortable that we'd won that game. And I think you saw that in the response, that when they made that break down that right side, that just watch the scramble here, because we had practiced and practiced and practiced this all season, our scramble defence and turning up for one another. It was something that Flanagan and Steve Price, our defensive coach, just rode us like mules. And look at the sea of blue coming. And now they come back the other way. Watch it come back the other way. Smith fades to kick there, and then all of a sudden they start heading to the right. And it was incredible. And even on the back of Vunivalu's shove there,
Who cares?
mate, it was the best feeling ever. Like I looked up at the clock and went, oh my God, 3-0.
We've won.
And it was just,
Fantastic.
Cronulla. This is Cronulla. This was Cronulla. They had no idea how to win a premiership. That they had no idea when we got back to the Leagues Club.
How to
right?
celebrate.
They had this line out the front of people trying to get in. They thought they blocked off the club. And what they'd done, there's auditorium full of people and a DJ going berserk, all the members that have been there watching the game. And next door to that is the players' family area that they'd given us all wristbands to.
Yeah.
Now, what they didn't know was at the main gates, they'd stacked it with 7 security guards from the members' door in between the players and partners area and all the sponsors. There's 2 doors in the middle of the auditorium,
Just
and it
knock 'em
became
down.
open slather. It was open slather within 15 minutes, mate. It was one of the great nights. One of the great nights.
Beautifully told, Nick. You've told me that once before on the radio, and it never gets old. It's
It's a great story,
it is a fantastic.
especially about the young fella.
Yeah, it gets me too.